Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to ASDC's Thursday Train to Win webinar. Today's topic is voter expansion, and we're going to talk about the program that the DNC is rolling out to help protect votes and expand the electorate in your states. And so we're going to have Pratt Wiley, who is the National Director of Voter Expansion, on the webinar today, and he's going to talk a bit about the program and how it will impact all of you in the states. Just a couple quick programming notes before we dive into today's presentation. First is that you are in listen-only mode as an attendee to today's webinar. So if you have a question, you can type it in the questions box, and we'll make sure that we read that out and get the question answered for you when the question time comes for the presentation. Secondly, if you have any challenges with audio, so if you're having any trouble hearing or the audio feed cuts in or cuts out, please do type that in the questions box as well so we can make sure that we troubleshoot those issues for you. Lastly, if you are following us on social media today and you just want to shout out our presenter or shout out our webinar series, you can use the hashtag train, the number 2 WIN win. So you can use that hashtag, or you can tweet at the ASDC using the @DemChairs mention. So again, if you have any audio challenges, please do type those in the questions box and let us know. If you have any questions, you can type those also in the questions box, or if it's easier for you to click the raise my hand icon, we will try and get you unmuted and get your question asked. So without further ado, I'm actually going to turn it over to Pratt Wiley, who is our, again, National Director of Voter Expansion. He's going to talk to you about the iWillVote program.
I think I've had a chance to talk with and share with many of you the basics of the voter expansion project and the programs that we're building here at the DNC, as well as with our state partners. For those of you who haven't heard me say it ad nauseum when either here at the February meetings or when we were in New Orleans earlier this, I guess the end of last year, the mission of the voter expansion project is clear. It is to make sure that every eligible voter can register, that every registered voter can vote, and that every vote is accurately counted. And again, the way that we do this is through a combination of 4 big strategies. The first strategy, and by far and away the most important of those strategies, is voter education. We believe strongly that a well-informed voter is the best way to mitigate problems that we run into on election day. When we couple that with well-trained and well-resourced election administrators, we solve the vast majority of problems. And the majority of the problems that do arise on election day are ones that can be solved in the polling place. We are working to advance and advocate for legislation that makes voting easier, that makes voting more convenient, that expands participation in the process, and we're fighting those laws where Republicans are doing the opposite, where they're making voting harder and more difficult. Excuse me. We start with voter registration as one of our goals, not just because it's the logical progression within the voting process, but also because it is truly one of the great barriers that folks have when it comes to engaging in the political process. Whether they are laws that are governing third-party registration drives, whether they are laws like the ones that we're seeing in Kansas and in Arizona, in Alabama and Georgia that are requiring proof of documentation, proof of citizenship, whether they are more subtle forms in terms of intimidation of volunteers who are out collecting registrations, whether it's officials who are telling volunteers that they can't stand on a street corner. The threats to folks entering the process and registering to vote is always a high priority for us. That's why we're excited to roll out and preview for you all, not roll out, but preview for you all a tool that we will be rolling out later this spring called iWillVote, iWillVote.com. It's part of our package of tools to be released again later this spring to help state parties, candidates, third-party organizations in the voter registration process. It's a tool that's designed both for our voters as well as for our staff and our volunteers. There we go. So iWillVote is our voter education and registration site. In many ways, for those of you who remember the Gotta Vote and Gotta Register websites from 2012, it is picking up the ball where that had been left off. The tool that we can use to make sure that we are sending our volunteers, our staff, and our voters with all the information that they need in order to successfully register and then vote on Election Day. We're just going to dig in just a little bit here, and we'll be happy to share these slides with you after the presentation. So again, the first piece that we're focusing on is the voter education piece, making sure that those voters do know the rules of the road. Again, the best defense is a well-informed voter. What we're telling them here on this site is the when, the where, the what in terms of the voting process. When we're able to list the key dates, whether they are the voter registration deadlines. We're using California here as an example. We have the dates for every state, key deadlines, whether it's voter registration, whether it's when early vote starts or when early vote ends, as well as any other key dates that may be relevant in those states, when one can start requesting an absentee ballot, things like that. Residency requirements. What do you do if you've moved? What do you do if you've changed states? Linking both to the state where you are and also having the information all in one place so that you can also look up the state that you had left. Information for students, a group that we know are particularly vulnerable to misinformation. First-time voters, particularly vulnerable to misinformation, as well as information for felons, to let them know what steps are required for them to restore their rights, whether they can do so automatically or whether they need to submit an application. And if they do need to submit an application or go through a process, linking them to the appropriate resource so that they can begin to re-enfranchise themselves. Ways that one can vote before Election Day. Both in what I call the traditional absentee voting process with the limited excuses for the limited excuses for one being able to vote on a day other than Election Day, or the more expansive reasons, your traditional early vote windows and vote by mail windows, as well as whether or not same-day registration or Election Day registration is available in your state. One key piece of information that we include on the site that we wanted to highlight at a more detailed level is the identification requirements within the state. First and foremost, I love using California as an example because their list is so long. I think it bears repeating over and over again that as Democrats, we're not against voter ID as an idea. What we are against are the selection of identifications and documents that exclude large portions of the electorate. And a state like California does a great job of providing plenty of opportunities for folks to prove that they are who they say they are and that they live where they say they live. Some states, this information is going to be a lot shorter in terms of the list of acceptable forms of identification. And in some states, the information is going to be more confusing. Not because we don't understand it, but rather because the laws are written in a way and are designed in a way to make the laws confusing. And what we've done is we have converted what is very dense legal language into very plain English and as easily digestible as possible. Another feature, one feature that's actually a new feature that we've added is being able to check your registration status. This one's important for a lot of different reasons. First and foremost, it makes campaigns more efficient. Right? I'm going to wear my organizer hat just for a moment. We know that there are some voter registration drives where 50%, if not more, of the folks who have been registered on a given day, those applications are going to be rejected because those folks are already registered. You wasted a number of shifts, you wasted a number of times with folks going out and re-registering people who were already on the poll books. By having a tool at your disposal and at a voter's disposal so that they're able to see whether or not they're registered, whether or not their registration status is active, or whether or not they need to change and update their status, is a compelling tool to make our teams more efficient, more effective. And what it's also going to do is cut down on confusion. Just today, there was a story coming out of West Virginia where an organization sponsored by the Koch brothers sent out a mailer to folks in a handful of counties in West Virginia that made folks question their registration status and question whether or not they were actually entitled to vote in the primary that's coming up, and or even the general election this November. So it's something that we are always very sensitive to, and a tool that we are excited to have at the fingertips of users everywhere, so that we can clean up some of this confusion as early as possible and as safely as possible. Now, the other piece of the tool, the other side of the house, if you will, is the voter registration side of the tool. In a state like California, where you have online registration available by the state, we have two options for the voter to register. They can either go directly to the Secretary of State's website and register into the system there, or they can fill out an application on our website. We do this for a couple of different reasons. One is that we know that there are some folks who just feel more comfortable registering with what they consider to be an official site than they do with what they perceive to be a partisan site. We also want to make sure that they know that they can use the Secretary of State's website in this case as an additional resource and as a way to cross-check some of the information that they have. And finally, we do it as a way to expedite some of the traffic that we're getting. There's a trade-off, however, in that when the folks are clicking through the Secretary of State's website, we're not collecting as much information on them as we do when they register through the iWillVote site. When they do register through the iWillVote site, what they are providing to us, and what you'll see a little bit here, is generally the same information that you see on the national form, right? So it's name, address, your identification number, ethnicity if it's required in your state, party affiliation if it's required in your state in order to vote in the primary, and as well as the directions, any of the state-specific directions that exist on the national voter registration form. The form on the iWillVote site, it will be available in both English and Spanish. Whether or not additional languages are required for your state is something that we can talk about, but as part of the initial rollout, it's just going to be English and Spanish. Excuse me. This is actually the last slide for the site. It just shows a little bit of what happens after a voter has successfully completed the form. They're able to download the form into a PDF and mail it to the appropriate election official. And again, it's reminding them of some of the requirements that are necessary in order to successfully complete their registration. So in this case, and then actually, I should have pointed this out earlier, for all the dates that we've built into the iWillVote site, they're all keyed off of the November election as opposed to the primaries. So you'll see the postmark dates in October. You'll see the beginning of early votes being in September or October, as well as Election Day being November. We did this for a number of different reasons, but not the least of being that for some states there are going to be 4 elections between now and November, and we wanted to make the site as user-friendly as possible. But again, reminding that voter of the deadlines, reminding that voter of some of the guidelines, repeating one more time that you need to be a U.S. citizen, that you need to be a resident of the state, you need to be at least 18 years old, et cetera, et cetera. And our hope for this website, our hope for this tool as well as the other tools that we'll be releasing is that you all at the state parties, that the candidates on our tickets, both at the top of the ticket as all the way down, that the organizations that are working with us to register voters use this tool, adapt this tool, build out this tool to achieve your own voter registration goals. I know that for a lot of states, voter registration is going to be an essential part of the campaign strategy. We've talked about that in a number of states. Pennsylvania comes to mind. Georgia comes to mind, the states where there are large gains to be made in voter registration. In other states, the goals may not be as high or as ambitious. In other states, they may organize in different ways and focus more on persuasion and turnout rather than registration. But that this was a tool that was used in great success in 2012. The Gotta Vote, Gotta Register websites registered a tremendous percentage of the total registrations collected in the Obama campaign in 2012. I think it was over 50%, and that if well utilized, it can have that same impact for candidates in your states. The other great piece about this tool is that it's going to continue to be developed and refined and strengthened both this cycle as well as future cycles. This coupled with the other tools that we'll be rolling out later this spring, hopefully will make your voter registration efforts both more effective, more efficient, and more impactful. And with that, I thank you all. Do we do questions? I'm going to turn it over to Janae.
Fantastic. And if you have a question for Pratt, you can type it in the questions box, or you can actually hit the raise my hand icon, and we will get your questions read. Great. So the first question that we have is regarding what kind of, if you can review this, what kind of staff support will there be in the states as it relates to this program?
I think that's going to really depend upon the states. What we are envisioning now, and I think I'll just talk in broad terms, is that this is a tool that should be in the hands of your field team. And what we will do in the voter expansion department is support your field teams in terms of the training, in terms of the reporting that you're getting off of this, in terms of any troubleshooting that you may need as a result of this, as best as possible. But that we're not going to be sending people out to states to roll out the project or to roll out the tool.
Great, thank you. And the second question we have Will there be a mobile platform for this program? Kind of what will the I guess digital piece of this look like?
Yeah, so the website is designed to be used on a smartphone. I don't believe at this time that there's going to be an app for this, but that it does have a mobile component to it.
Okay, great. Our third question is, when is the launch? When's the tentative launch?
We're planning the tentative launch, like I say, later this spring. Hopefully we'll have more information on that when you guys all gather in Annapolis and we join you then. But that what we are very sensitive to is that the voter registration and field building activities have already begun in most of the states, in many of the states, and that we want to put this in the hands of your organizers as quickly as possible, and that we want to make this a component of your plans to take a lift off of your field teams. And knowing that come July and that voter reg will be in full swing in most states, that's driving our thinking in terms of the rollout dates.
Great. One other question that we have is just to be clear about how the site directs folks. Will they be launching onto one site that directs them to the appropriate state?
Well, the way that the website works is that when you log on to iWillVote.com, there's a drop-down box, and so you select which state you wish to register. It's not going to take a look, for example, of where your computer is and then automatically direct you to that site. That way, a college student who is in New York but who lives in Ohio, is from Ohio, can still easily register in that state. And then with the guidelines, what we've actually done is there's a nice layout on the page so that you can easily select your state based upon you can easily select your state. And the way that we've laid out the page in that case makes the site much more accessible for those with visual disabilities.
Great. It doesn't look like we have any additional questions. And again, as Pratt mentioned, this was a preview of the rollout of the program. So you'll be hearing more about this program in the coming weeks and months. And additionally, we'll have some time in Annapolis, hopefully, to talk a bit more about what this is going to look like in its full rollout form. So we're looking forward to it. So seeing no additional questions, I want to thank Pratt Wiley, our National Director for Voter Expansion, for joining us today on today's webinar, and we want to thank you all for joining to learn more about what's going to happen with voter expansion, voter protection, everything of the like for this election cycle. We hope this was informative for you, and again, look for more information in the coming weeks and months. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.